I parked my rusty Honda in front of my sister Amanda's sprawling colonial mansion, feeling out of place as always. My 8-year-old son Tyler squeezed my hand. "Will Aunt Amanda be nice today?" he whispered. I forced a smile, hoping this dinner might finally heal our family rift after my divorce left us struggling. When dinner arrived, Amanda's children received steaming lobster platters while Tyler got plain water. "We don't feed extras," my sister said coldly. Mom nodded, adding, "You should know your place." I just smiled and said, "Noted." Then the doorbell rang, announcing the private chef's arrival. The tension in the dining room was suffocating as Amanda strode to answer the door. Tyler looked at me with confused eyes, his small hands fidgeting with the empty space where a plate should have been. At 32 years old, I never imagined I'd be in this position, broke, divorced, and being humiliated at my sister's dinner table. Just 6 months ago, I had a stable marketing director position at Meridian Consulting. The company downsizing came without warning, leaving me and 20 other employees suddenly jobless. 2 weeks later, my husband Jack announced he was leaving me for Melanie, his 24-year-old administrative assistant. The divorce left me with minimal savings, overdue bills, and a broken heart trying to stay strong for Tyler. Amanda, on the other hand, had always lived a charmed life. My 36-year-old sister married Scott Harrington, a wildly successful investment banker right after college. Their 5-bedroom mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood of Westlake Hills was just one symbol of their apparent success, along with their luxury cars and designer wardrobes. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Tyler whispered, his voice barely audible. My heart clenched. I had promised him dinner at Aunt Amanda's would be special. "Just a moment, sweetie," I whispered back, reaching into my purse for a granola bar I'd brought just in case. Amanda would consider it tacky, but my son's empty stomach was more important than her opinion. Before I could discreetly pass it to him, the private chef walked in, and my heart stopped. Standing in Amanda's dining room in professional culinary attire was Lily Thompson, my former college roommate and once close friend. We had attended culinary school together before I switched to marketing for financial stability. Lily had pursued her dreams and apparently succeeded. Her eyes met mine, widening slightly in recognition, but she quickly regained her professional composure. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Chef Lily, and I'll be preparing your special announcement dinner tonight, Mrs. Harrington." "Wonderful," Amanda said, not bothering to introduce anyone. "These are my children, Jessica and Brett. They'll have the lobster thermidor as discussed." She gestured dismissively toward Tyler and me. "That's my sister and her son. They're just observing." My mother Nancy nodded approvingly at Amanda, then frowned at me. Katrina never did appreciate fine dining. No sense wasting good food. The familiar sting of their judgment was nothing new. Growing up, Amanda had always been the golden child, class president, prom queen, and valedictorian. I worked just as hard but remained in her shadow, with my parents constantly reminding me why I wasn't good enough. "Actually," Lily said with professional poise, "I prepared enough for everyone. It's no trouble to serve 2 more. Amanda laughed sharply. "That won't be necessary. They won't appreciate it anyway." I caught Lily's eye briefly, seeing a flash of the same disbelief she'd shown in college when I'd tell her stories about my family. Back then, she'd thought I was exaggerating. Now she was witnessing it firsthand. As Lily disappeared into the kitchen, Amanda's children Jessica, age 10, and Brett, 12, snickered at Tyler. "Does he always wear clothes from the donation bin?" Brett asked loudly. "Brett, don't be rude," Scott said, finally speaking up. He gave me an apologetic glance. "It's just an observation, Dad," Brett replied with a shrug that mimicked Amanda's dismissive gestures perfectly. Scott turned to Tyler with a kind smile. "So, Tyler, your mom tells me you're quite the artist. What do you like to draw?" Before Tyler could answer, Amanda interrupted. "Let's not encourage impractical hobbies, Scott. Not everyone is meant for success." My mother nodded sagely. Amanda's right. Katrina always had unrealistic dreams, too. Thank goodness one of my daughters listened to reason. I felt Tyler press against me, shrinking into my side as he always did when uncomfortable. I put my arm around him protectively, reminding myself why I had accepted this dinner invitation despite knowing what to expect. After losing my job, I hoped that perhaps Amanda might help with a reference or connection. Family was family, after all. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text. Discreetly checking it under the table, I was surprised to see it was from Lily. "Meet me in the kitchen in 5 minutes. There's something you should know about your sister." I looked up to see Lily placing elaborate lobster dishes in front of Amanda's family, pointedly avoiding eye contact with me. What could she possibly know about Amanda? The dinner continued with Amanda dominating the conversation with stories of her country club memberships and upcoming vacations. I noticed Scott checking his watch repeatedly, seeming detached from his wife's monologue. When I excused myself to use the restroom, I took a detour to the kitchen as Lily had requested. She was frantically plating desserts, but stopped when I entered. "Kat, I can't believe what I just witnessed," she said, her voice low. "Is it always like this?" "More or less," I admitted. "What did you want to tell me?" Lily glanced toward the dining room to ensure we were alone. "Your sister hired me through an agency last minute. Her regular chef canceled because she hasn't paid his last 3 invoices." She paused, looking uncomfortable. "The thing is, I overheard her arguing with the agency about payment. Katrina, from what I gathered, Amanda is completely broke. This dinner is being charged to a credit card that's apparently already maxed out." I stared at her, unable to process this information. "That's impossible. Look at this house, their cars." "All for show," Lily said firmly. "The agency only agreed because of her address and reputation, but they made her pay up front. I wasn't supposed to know, but I heard the owner talking about it. Apparently, she's been bouncing checks all over town." Before I could respond, the kitchen door swung open, and there stood Amanda, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Having a nice chat with the help, Katrina? Some things never change." I returned to the dining room with Amanda, following closely behind, her high heels clicking aggressively on the marble floor. The information Lily had shared left me reeling, but I kept my expression neutral as I took my seat beside Tyler. "Everything okay, Mom?" Tyler whispered, always intuitive beyond his 8 years. "Everything's fine, sweetheart," I assured him, though my mind was racing with questions. Amanda clinked her crystal water glass with a silver spoon, commanding attention in the way she'd perfected since childhood. "Everyone, I have an exciting announcement to make," she declared. "Effective next month, I've been appointed Vice President of Client Relations at Westmore Partners." My mother gasped with delight, while Scott offered polite congratulations. I noticed his enthusiasm seemed measured compared to my mother's effusive praise. "That's wonderful news, Amanda," I said sincerely. "Despite everything, Westmore Partners is prestigious. Your hard work paid off." Amanda's smile turned razor sharp. "Interesting you should mention hard work, Katrina. I wasn't going to share this detail, but since you brought it up." She took a deliberate sip of her wine. "When Westmore was conducting their executive search, your name actually came up." I froze. Westmore Partners was one of the companies I'd applied to after my layoff. I'd gone through 3 rounds of interviews and had been told I was a strong candidate. "They called me as a reference," Amanda continued, eyes glittering. "Given our family connection, they wanted my honest assessment of your capabilities." The room grew painfully quiet. Even Tyler sensed the shift, pressing closer to my side. "What did you tell them?" I asked, already knowing the answer from her triumphant expression. "The truth, of course. That you've always struggled with authority and commitment. That you prioritize feelings over results," she shrugged delicately. "I couldn't in good conscience recommend you for a position you weren't suited for. They were quite grateful for my candor." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. All those interviews, the hope I'd felt when they'd seemed impressed with my portfolio and ideas, all undermined by my own sister. "You deliberately sabotaged me," I said quietly, the pieces falling into place. "I saved them from making an expensive mistake," Amanda corrected, turning to our mother. "Remember how Katrina could never handle criticism in school? Always crying when her projects weren't selected?" My mother nodded. "You were always too sensitive, Katrina. Amanda did you a favor. That position would have been too demanding for someone like you." "Someone like me?" I repeated. "A single mother with a struggling child." my mother clarified, glancing dismissively at Tyler. You need to be realistic about your capabilities. Tyler tugged at my sleeve. Mom, I'm really hungry, he whispered, his voice small but audible in the tense silence. Amanda's children snickered. Didn't you feed him before coming here? Jessica asked with exaggerated concern. Or can you not afford dinner every night? Jessica, Scott warned, but without much force behind it. Mom, can I please have something to eat? Tyler asked me directly, his eyes pleading. Before I could answer, Brett leaned over. There's a McDonald's down the street. That's more your speed anyway. Brett, that's enough, Scott said more firmly. I noticed Tyler's eyes welling with tears, and something protective and fierce rose within me. Is there any bread or something simple my son could have? I asked, looking directly at Amanda. The chef prepared exactly what was ordered, Amanda replied coldly. Perhaps next time you'll plan better. Tyler reached into his backpack and pulled out his sketchbook, his prized possession containing months of detailed drawings. Art was his refuge, especially during the difficult transition of the divorce. Can I draw while I wait? He asked me quietly. Before I could answer, Jessica reached across the table and snatched it from his hands. Let's see what kind of artist you are, she mocked, flipping through the pages roughly. Please give that back, Tyler said, his voice trembling. Jessica, return Tyler's book right now, I demanded, standing up. Oh, lighten up, Katrina, Amanda said dismissively. They're just playing. Brett joined his sister, grabbing the sketchbook and holding it above Tyler's reach. With deliberate cruelty, he tore out several pages, crumpling them into balls. Stop it, Tyler cried, reaching desperately for his work. I moved to intervene, but Amanda blocked my path. Children need to learn to handle conflict themselves, she said with cold authority. Scott finally stood up. That's enough. Brett, Jessica, give the book back now. The children reluctantly obeyed their father, but the damage was done. Several of Tyler's most detailed drawings were destroyed, including a portrait he'd spent weeks perfecting of Jack and me together, a memory of happier times he'd worked to preserve. Tyler clutched the damaged sketchbook to his chest, silent tears streaming down his face. I wrapped my arm around him, fighting back my own tears of anger and frustration. Well, this has become unnecessarily dramatic, my mother commented with disapproval. This is exactly why we can't have nice family gatherings anymore, Katrina. Your emotional reactions always spoil the atmosphere. I stared at her in disbelief. Tyler's property was just destroyed, and he's being denied food. How should we react, Mother? With dignity, she replied sharply. Something you've always lacked. Amanda nodded in agreement. Speaking of property, Mother, I've been meaning to ask about the trust disbursement. My attention snapped to them. What trust disbursement? My mother shifted uncomfortably. Your grandmother's inheritance. It was distributed last month. This was the first I'd heard of it. My grandmother had passed away 2 years ago, and I knew she'd left both Amanda and me equal portions of her estate, to be distributed after some investments matured. I never received anything, I said slowly. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. We made an executive decision. Given your financial instability, we thought it best if Amanda managed both portions. For investment purposes. You gave my inheritance to Amanda? The betrayal deepened. That money was meant to help Tyler and me get back on our feet? And it will, Amanda interjected smoothly. Once it's properly grown through smart investments, you would have wasted it on rent and groceries. That was my decision to make, I said, my voice shaking with anger. That money legally belongs to me. Actually, my mother countered, I had power of attorney, and I made the decision I felt was best. Amanda has always been the financially responsible one. Just then, Lily entered with an elaborate seafood tower for the announcement celebration. She assessed the tense scene, her eyes lingering on Tyler's tear-stained face and the crumpled paper balls on the floor. Without a word, she placed a small plate with beautifully arranged fruit and cheese in front of Tyler. I didn't order that for him, Amanda snapped. Chef's courtesy, Lily replied evenly. I don't allow children to go hungry in establishments where I'm cooking. Amanda's face flushed with anger as Tyler whispered a grateful thank you to Lily. As Lily turned to leave, her phone buzzed audibly. She checked it and then gave me a meaningful look before discreetly sliding her phone onto the edge of my chair as she passed. When Amanda was distracted by serving herself from the seafood tower, I glanced at Lily's phone. There was a text notification on the screen from someone named Financial Times reporter Marcus. Can you confirm if Amanda Harrington is your client? Working on story about her bankruptcy filing and credit card fraud allegations. Deadline tomorrow. I looked up in shock, accidentally meeting Scott's eyes. His expression told me immediately that he knew. The bankruptcy was real. Amanda's success was a lie. And somehow, the truth was about to become public. "Excuse me," I murmured, pushing back from the table. "Tyler, honey, come with me to wash your hands before you eat." Tyler grabbed his plate of fruit and cheese, clutching it protectively as we headed toward the bathroom. Once safely behind the closed door, I knelt to his level. "Are you okay, sweetie?" I asked, gently wiping his tears with a tissue. He nodded bravely. "Why does Aunt Amanda hate us, Mom? Why does Grandma always take her side?" The innocent questions pierced my heart. They don't hate us, Tyler. Sometimes people are unhappy with themselves and they take it out on others. Tyler took a small bite of cheese. Jessica and Brett tore up my dragon drawing, the one I was going to enter in the school contest. I felt a fresh wave of anger. "I'm so sorry, honey. We can try to fix it, or you can create an even better one." "It won't be done in time for the deadline," he said, his voice small and defeated. I pulled him into a hug, feeling his thin shoulders shake with silent sobs. In that moment, I hated what this dinner was doing to him, reinforcing the same feelings of inadequacy that I'd grown up with. A soft knock interrupted us. "Katrina? It's Lily. Can I come in?" I opened the door to find my old friend standing there with a concerned expression. "Tyler, is it okay if I talk to your mom for a minute?" she asked gently. "Chef to chef, I could really use your opinion on the dessert presentation in the kitchen." Tyler's eyes widened. "I'm not a chef." Lily smiled warmly. "Anyone with an artistic eye like yours understands presentation. Your mom told me you're an amazing artist." Tyler glanced at me for permission, and I nodded. "The kitchen's just down the hall. I'll join you in a minute." As Tyler headed to the kitchen, Lily stepped into the bathroom and closed the door. "Kat, I'm so sorry about all this. I had no idea when I took this job that it was your family." Her eyes flashed with anger. "The way they're treating you and your son is inexcusable." "Is it true about Amanda?" I asked. "The bankruptcy?" Lily nodded grimly. "More than that. I have a friend at the catering agency who told me Scott's been trying to keep it quiet, but Amanda's been running up massive debt for years. Designer clothes, jewelry, vacations, all to maintain this image of success." "But Scott's a successful investment banker," I said, confused. "Was," Lily corrected. "His firm took a major hit 3 years ago. They've been living on credit and remortgaging this house. Scott's been trying to rein in spending, but Amanda refused to change their lifestyle." I leaned against the sink, trying to process this information. "So, all this," I gestured vaguely at the opulent bathroom, with its marble countertops and gold fixtures, "is just a facade?" "A crumbling one," Lily confirmed. "The reporter who texted me is writing an exposé. Apparently, Amanda's been writing bad checks all over town, claiming she's good for it because of her new VP position. The position she got by sabotaging me," I said bitterly. "That's the kicker," Lily said. "According to my contact at Westmore Partners, they haven't actually finalized their decision yet. Amanda's counting her chickens before they've hatched." I shook my head in disbelief. Why would she announce it tonight, then? To maintain appearances? To convince Scott she's contributing? Lily suggested. "From what I overheard in the kitchen, Scott's at his breaking point. He's been talking to divorce lawyers." The bathroom suddenly felt too small, too confining. I needed air, needed to think. I should check on Tyler. "Before you go," Lily said, putting a hand on my arm, "look in the drawer." "What?" "The bottom drawer. I saw your mother hide something there earlier when I came in to refresh the hand towels." Curious, I opened the bottom drawer of the vanity. Beneath a stack of guest towels was a worn leather photo album. I pulled it out and opened it, gasping at what I found. The photos inside showed my mother as a young woman, standing in front of a small, modest apartment building. In one photo, she was serving simple sandwiches to guests at what appeared to be a family gathering, looking exactly as out of place as I felt now. Another showed her being similarly snubbed by well-dressed relatives. "That's my grandmother," I whispered, recognizing the imperious older woman who stood apart from my mother in several photos. "And these must be my mother's in-laws." "History repeating itself," Lily observed quietly. I continued flipping through the album, seeing my mother's progression from an outsider in a wealthy family to eventually becoming accepted, but at what cost? The final pages showed her transformed, looking down on others just as she had once been looked down upon. "She became what she once hated," I murmured, a profound sadness washing over me. A small envelope fell from between the pages. Inside was a handwritten note in my grandmother's distinctive script. "Nancy, never forget where you came from. Kindness costs nothing but means everything. Pass this wisdom to both your daughters." I carefully returned everything except the note, which I slipped into my pocket. This was the grandmother I remembered, wise and fair, who had always treated Amanda and me equally despite our differences. "We should get back," Lily said after a moment. "But, Kat, you don't have to take this treatment. Not from Amanda, not from your mother." "What can I do? They hold all the cards, the money, the connections, the family support." Lily's eyes gleamed with determination. "Do they? Or is it all smoke and mirrors? Sometimes the person with nothing to lose is the most powerful person in the room." I thought about Tyler, about the inheritance that should have helped secure his future, about years of being made to feel less than. "I'm tired of playing their game," I admitted. "Then change the rules," Lily suggested. "I've got an idea, if you're willing to take a risk." As she outlined her plan, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: hope, not just for surviving this dinner, but for breaking free from the toxic patterns that had defined our family for generations. When we returned to the dining room, Tyler was already seated, looking considerably happier as he finished his food. A new resolve strengthened my spine as I took my place at the table, meeting Amanda's suspicious gaze with a calm smile. The game was about to change. I settled back into my chair with newfound confidence, the weight of Lily's revelations and our hastily formed plan giving me unexpected strength. Tyler looked at me questioningly, sensing the change in my demeanor. "Everything okay, Mom?" he whispered. I squeezed his hand under the table. "Better than okay, sweetie." Amanda was in the middle of describing her new executive office at Westmore Partners in excruciating detail: the imported Italian desk, the view of downtown, the personal assistant. My mother hung on every word while Scott methodically worked through his lobster, his expression unreadable. "So, Amanda," I said when she paused for breath, "I'm curious about Westmore's new marketing strategy. I heard they're pivoting toward digital-first client acquisition." Amanda's fork paused midway to her mouth. "Yes, of course. That's part of my new role." "Fascinating," I continued, noting her hesitation. "Which platforms are they prioritizing?" Last I heard, their CMO was skeptical about the TikTok demographic for financial services. Amanda's smile tightened. "We're exploring all avenues. It's quite technical, actually." "I'd love to hear more," I pressed, especially since digital marketing was my specialty at Meridian. Perhaps we could compare notes. "This isn't really dinner conversation, Katrina," my mother interjected, clearly sensing Amanda's discomfort. "On the contrary," Scott said, suddenly engaged. "I'd like to hear Amanda's take on this, too. Westmore's digital presence has been surprisingly weak." Amanda shot him an irritated glance before composing herself. "We're developing a comprehensive strategy. I'll be overseeing the team handling those details." "But surely, as VP, you'd be directly involved in approving the strategy," I suggested innocently. "Especially given how central digital has become to client acquisition in financial services." "Of course I will," Amanda snapped, color rising in her cheeks. "I just don't want to bore everyone with industry jargon." Tyler had been quietly sketching on his napkin during this exchange. He held it up suddenly, a remarkably detailed dragon rising from flames, drawn with just a ballpoint pen. "Look, Mom." I remembered the design. "It's not as good as my original, but it's beautiful, Tyler," I said truthfully, amazed at his resilience. Lily, who had entered with coffee service, paused to look at the drawing. "That's extraordinary," she said with genuine admiration. "You have real talent." "It's just a doodle," Amanda dismissed, but I noticed Scott leaning over to examine the drawing more closely. "This is remarkable," he agreed. "Tyler, have you had any art lessons?" "We can't afford them," Tyler answered simply. Amanda smirked, but Scott frowned. "That's a shame. Talent like this should be nurtured." "Perhaps Amanda could help," I suggested smoothly. With her connections and new VP salary, supporting her nephew's education would be a small gesture. Amanda's eyes narrowed. "Not everyone can make a living as an artist, Katrina. Better he learns practical skills." "Like finance?" I asked innocently. Speaking of which, I was reading about the recent changes to the Dodd-Frank regulations and their impact on investment strategies. "What's Westmore's position on the new compliance requirements?" The color drained from Amanda's face. Scott looked at her with sudden interest. "That's an excellent question," he said, "especially since it directly affects our client portfolios." We're still formulating our response," Amanda stammered. "Strange," I mused. "I would have thought that would be a day-one priority for a new VP of Client Relations, especially given the deadline for compliance is next month." Scott's expression had shifted from polite interest to suspicion. "Yes, it should be," he agreed, studying his wife carefully. My mother, sensing danger, attempted to redirect. "Katrina, not everyone needs to prove their intelligence at the dinner table. Amanda has always had a natural business sense." "Natural business sense is valuable," I acknowledged, "but so is specific industry knowledge." I turned back to Amanda. "By the way, who's your new boss at Westmore?" I interviewed with several executives there, including Diane Reynolds. Brilliant woman. "Yes, Diane is." "She's very impressive," Amanda replied vaguely. "She would be if she existed," I said quietly. "There is no Diane Reynolds at Westmore Partners." A heavy silence fell over the table. Amanda's face flushed deep red. I meant Richard. Richard Reynolds." "There's no Richard Reynolds either," I said, maintaining eye contact. "I researched the entire executive team before my interviews." Scott set down his fork with deliberate care. "Amanda, what's going on?" Before she could answer, Lily appeared with dessert, an elaborate chocolate creation for Amanda and my mother, a simple but elegant fruit tart for Scott, and a spectacular dragon sculpted from chocolate and spun sugar for Tyler. "Chef's special for the artist," Lily announced with a wink to Tyler, whose eyes widened in delight. "I didn't authorize this," Amanda hissed. "It's on the house," Lily replied smoothly. "I believe in encouraging young talent." As Tyler marveled at his dessert, Amanda's phone rang loudly. She glanced at the screen and hastily silenced it, but not before the caller ID flashed visibly. "Creditor, do not answer." The timing couldn't have been more perfect if we'd planned it. Scott stared at the phone, then at Amanda. "Another collection call?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Amanda laughed nervously. "Just a telemarketer. They're relentless these days." As if on cue, the phone began ringing again. This time Scott reached for it before Amanda could react. "Allow me, dear," he said, answering and putting it on speaker. "Hello? Mrs. Harrington, this is Kevin Mills from Capital Recovery Group," came a professional but stern voice. "This is our third attempt to contact you regarding your overdue balance of $12,842.17 on your Platinum Elite card. If payment arrangements are not made within 48 hours, we will have no choice but to proceed with legal action." Scott ended the call and placed the phone deliberately on the table. $12,000 on the Platinum Elite, he said evenly. "The card I thought we canceled 3 months ago." My mother looked bewildered. "There must be some mistake." "Amanda wouldn't. It's just a billing error," Amanda insisted, her composure cracking. "I've been meaning to call them." "Like you called about the $6,000 on the Nordstrom card?" Scott asked. "Or the $8,000 on the card you opened in Jessica's name? Or the second mortgage you tried to take out without my knowledge?" You're embarrassing me in front of everyone, Amanda hissed. I'm embarrassing you? Scott's voice rose slightly. Amanda, we're on the brink of bankruptcy, and you're announcing executive positions you haven't been offered while charging lobster dinners we can't afford. My mother gasped, looking between Amanda and Scott in confusion. This can't be right. Amanda has always been so responsible with money. Unlike... She glanced at me but didn't finish the sentence. Unlike me? I supplied. The irony is, Mother, that despite my struggles, I've never spent money I don't have. Every bill gets paid, even if it means taking extra shifts or selling my own belongings. But this house, the cars... My mother gestured around weakly. All leverage to the hilt, Scott said grimly. We've been living on borrowed money and borrowed time. He turned to Amanda. And there is no VP position at Westmore, is there? Amanda's facade finally cracked. They're still deciding. But I'm the front runner. I just needed to project confidence. By sabotaging your sister's chance at the same job? Scott demanded. Did you think I wouldn't find out about that? All eyes turned to Amanda, who looked cornered. I deserve that position more than Katrina ever could. I've worked for this my whole life. Worked? I couldn't help but interject. Amanda, you haven't held a full-time job since college. Your resume is basically charity committee memberships. Those are connections, she snapped. Something you never understood the value of. My mother was shaking her head in denial. This can't be happening. Amanda has always made the smart choices. She married well. She lives in this beautiful home. A beautiful home with 3 mortgages, Scott said wearily. Nancy, I'm sorry, but your daughter has been lying to everyone, including herself. We're not just in financial trouble. We're on the verge of losing everything. Tyler, who had been quietly enjoying his dessert, suddenly spoke up. Is that why Jessica and Brett are always bragging about stuff but never actually have anything new? The innocent observation landed like a bombshell. Amanda's children looked down at their plates, unusual silence confirming Tyler's assessment. Out of the mouths of babes, Lily murmured as she cleared plates. Amanda's eyes filled with angry tears. This is your fault, Katrina. You come here with your sad story and your poor little boy, and suddenly everyone's against me. I felt a strange calm settle over me. This isn't about me, Amanda. It never was. I came here tonight hoping for family support during a difficult time, maybe even some professional help from my successful sister. Instead, I discovered that success built on lies eventually collapses under its own weight. How poetic, she sneered. Will that pay your rent next month? Actually, Lily interjected, setting down a tray of digestive glasses. I've been meaning to talk to Katrina about a business opportunity. My new restaurant opens next month, and I need someone with marketing expertise and culinary background. The salary is competitive. Amanda stared in disbelief as Lily continued. In fact, I noticed your son's artistic talent as well. We could use help with menu design and social media graphics, paid, of course, even if it's just occasional freelance work. Tyler's eyes widened. Really? You'd pay me for my drawings? Absolutely, Lily confirmed. Talent deserved compensation. I felt a surge of emotion, gratitude toward my old friend, hope for our future, and a strange pity for my sister, whose entire identity was crumbling before my eyes. Scott cleared his throat. Speaking of compensation, he said, turning to me, there's something you should know, Katrina. I've been setting aside money for Tyler's education fund for the past 3 years. It was my turn to be shocked. What? $500 each month, he said, not looking at Amanda. After I learned how Amanda treated you both at family gatherings, it seemed the right thing to do. It's in a trust that only you can access for Tyler's benefit. Amanda gasped. You've been giving them our money? While we're drowning in debt? It wasn't our money, Scott replied firmly. It was money I earned from private consulting work on weekends, work I did specifically for this purpose. As Amanda processed this betrayal, I found myself meeting my mother's confused gaze. I pulled my grandmother's note from my pocket and slid it across the table to her. You might want to read this, Mom. Grandma left it for you, for us, but I think somewhere along the way, the message got lost. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's hands trembled slightly as she read our grandmother's note, her expression shifting from confusion to recognition and finally to something I hadn't seen in years, shame. Amanda snatched the note from her. "Nancy, never forget where you came from," she read aloud, her voice dripping with scorn. "What is this supposed to be? Some kind of gotcha moment?" "It's a reminder," I said quietly, "of who we were supposed to be as a family." Amanda crumpled the note and tossed it aside. "This is ridiculous. So what if we have some financial challenges?" "Everyone does. That doesn't change anything." "It changes everything," Scott said firmly. "The lies, the sabotage, the way you've treated your sister and nephew, it's not about the money, Amanda. It's about who you've become." "Who I've become?" Amanda's voice rose shrilly. "I've become exactly what I was raised to be. The successful daughter, the perfect wife, the envy of everyone." She turned to our mother. "Tell them, Mom. Tell them how you always said appearances matter more than anything, how you taught me to never show weakness." My mother stared at the crumpled note on the table, then at the old photo album I'd left on the side table. Something in her seemed to deflate. "I wanted better for you girls than what I had," she said softly. "My in-laws, they never thought I was good enough for your father. Every dinner, every holiday was an exercise in humiliation. I thought of the photos, my mother standing awkwardly at family gatherings, serving simple food while others dined lavishly. So you taught Amanda to be like them?" I asked, not accusingly but with genuine curiosity. "I taught her to survive," my mother replied. "To never be looked down upon. To always be the one in control." She looked up at me with tired eyes. "You were always stronger, Katrina. You didn't need those lessons. You had your father's confidence, his ease with people regardless of their status. That wasn't strength," I corrected gently. "That was just being authentic, something you and Amanda have sacrificed in pursuit of an image." Amanda wasn't ready to concede. "This is all very touching, but it doesn't change our reality. We still have positions to maintain, appearances to keep up." "No, Amanda, we don't," Scott interjected firmly. "The game is over. I've been talking to bankruptcy attorneys for weeks, and—" He hesitated, then continued with resolve. "I've also consulted divorce lawyers." The shock on Amanda's face was palpable. "Divorce? You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious," Scott replied. "It's not just the financial deception, though that's part of it. It's what this lifestyle has done to our children, to our values. I don't recognize the woman I married anymore." Brett and Jessica exchanged worried glances. "Dad, what does that mean?" Brett asked, suddenly sounding much younger than 12. Scott's expression softened as he looked at his children. "It means some things will change. We'll live within our means. You might attend public school instead of Westlake Academy. We'll have fewer material things, but hopefully more honesty and reality." "This is your fault," Amanda hissed at me. "You've turned everyone against me." "No one turned anyone against you, Amanda," I said calmly. "Your choices did that. Just as my choices led me here. Divorced, temporarily struggling, but still authentic and connected to what really matters." Tyler, who had been watching this exchange with wide eyes, suddenly spoke up. "Aunt Amanda, are you and Uncle Scott getting a divorce like my parents did?" The innocent question seemed to pierce Amanda's armor. For a brief moment, vulnerability flashed across her face before the mask returned. "Mind your business, Tyler," she snapped. "Don't speak to him that way," I said, my voice firm but controlled. "He asked a reasonable question with compassion, which is more than you've shown him tonight." Lily, who had been discreetly monitoring the situation from the sidelines, stepped forward with a tray of small glasses. Perhaps this might help ease the tension. A special digestif, my own recipe. She served everyone, including Tyler, though I noticed his glass contained what looked like sparkling cider rather than alcohol. Toast," Scott suggested, raising his glass. "To truth, however uncomfortable it might be." We all drank, even Amanda, who seemed to be running on autopilot now. The liqueur was sweet but had a warming, loosening effect that seemed to soften the rigid atmosphere. "I should have told you sooner," Scott said to Amanda after a moment. "About the financial reality, about my dissatisfaction. Maybe we could, of course, corrected. Would you have listened? I asked my sister gently. Amanda stared into her empty glass. I don't know how to be anything other than what I am. That's not true, my mother said unexpectedly. You were different once, before I taught you otherwise. She turned to me with eyes that seemed to really see me for the first time in years. You both were. Mom, did you really give Amanda my inheritance? I asked directly. My mother had the grace to look ashamed. Yes, Amanda convinced me it was for the best, that she could invest it more wisely. I didn't know about their financial situation. The money's gone, isn't it? I asked, looking at Amanda. After a long pause, she nodded. Credit card debt, designer furniture, Jessica's private tennis lessons. It went so fast. I should have felt angry, betrayed all over again, but instead I felt an odd sense of liberation. The inheritance, like my marriage, my former career, was in the past now. You know what's strange? I said, looking around the elegant dining room. I've spent my life feeling like a failure compared to you, Amanda, envying all of this. But sitting here tonight, watching Tyler's strength and creativity even when he's hungry and hurting, I realized something. What's that? Scott asked when I paused. I'm actually the lucky one, I said simply. I lost things, my marriage, my job, apparently my inheritance, but I never lost myself, or my son's respect. Amanda's face crumpled, her carefully maintained facade finally breaking completely. What am I supposed to do now? Everyone will know. The country club, the school parents, everyone will talk when we lose the house. They probably will, I acknowledged. Just like they talked about me when Jack left and I had to downsize. It hurts, then it doesn't. I don't know how to start over, Amanda admitted, a tear slipping down her cheek. I don't have your resilience, Katrina. I never did. You have more than you think, I told her. And you have family, real family, not the image of family we've been pretending to be. My mother reached across the table and took one of Amanda's hands and one of mine. I failed you both, she said quietly. I was so focused on not repeating my past that I created something worse. It's never too late to change direction, Lily observed, rejoining the conversation. Take it from someone who's reinvented herself a few times. Scott nodded thoughtfully. The question is whether we're all willing to do the hard work that real change requires. I looked at Tyler, who had been watching the adults with remarkable perceptiveness. What do you think, sweetie? Is it worth giving family another chance, even when they've hurt you? Tyler considered this seriously. I guess it depends if they're really sorry or just sorry they got caught. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. His simple wisdom cut through the tension, drawing reluctant smiles from everyone. I think, Amanda said slowly, that I might be actually sorry, not just about tonight, about a lot of things. It wasn't a full apology, but from Amanda, it was monumental. I saw Scott's expression soften slightly. That's a start, he said. My mother squeezed our hands. I am sorry, truly, to both of you, for different reasons. I felt something shift in the room. Not a miraculous healing of all wounds, but a crack in the foundation of pretense that had defined our family for too long. So what happens now? Jessica asked, breaking her unusual silence. Do we have to be poor like Aunt Katrina? I might have been offended once, but I recognized the genuine fear in her question. Being careful with money isn't the same as being poor, I explained gently. And having less stuff can sometimes mean having more of what really matters. Like what? Brett challenged, though his tone was more curious than hostile. Like time together, Tyler offered. Mom and I have movie nights with popcorn every Friday, even when things are tight. And integrity, Scott added. Being able to look in the mirror and like who you see. Amanda was quiet, absorbing all of this. Finally, she looked directly at me. I've been jealous of you, she admitted, the words seeming to physically pain her. Of me? I couldn't hide my surprise. You've always been. Real. People genuinely like you, not just what you can do for them or what you represent. Even when we were kids, you had real friends while I had strategic alliances. She glanced at Lily. Like your friendship with Lily. 20 years later, and she still has your back. That goes both ways, Lily pointed out. Katrina was always the first to celebrate others' successes, to offer help without keeping score. I don't know how to be that person, Amanda said softly. You start with small steps, I suggested. Maybe by making sure your nephew doesn't go hungry at family dinners. A flash of shame crossed Amanda's face. Tyler, I'm sorry about tonight, and your sketchbook. Tyler regarded her solemnly. It's okay. I can draw more dragons. His simple forgiveness brought a fresh tear to Amanda's eye. I'd like to see them sometime, she said, and I could tell she meant it. As the evening's revelations settled around us, I realized we were experiencing something rare and valuable, a moment of genuine truth among people who had been hiding from each other for years. There was hurt, yes, and there would be consequences to face, but there was also possibility. To new beginnings, Scott proposed, raising his water glass this time, whatever form they may take. One by one, we all joined the toast, even Amanda, even my mother, even the children. As our glasses clinked together, I caught Lily's eye across the table and mouthed a silent thank you for her role in this unexpected turning point. The carefully constructed facades had crumbled, leaving us all exposed but somehow more authentic than we had been in years. What would rise from these ruins remained to be seen, but for the first time, I felt hopeful that whatever it was would be built on truth rather than illusion. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the blinds of our modest apartment. For a moment, I lay still, replaying the events of the previous evening in my mind. It had the surreal quality of a dream, the confrontation, the revelations, the unexpected alliance with Lily, and the fragile, tentative truce with my family. Tyler appeared in my doorway, already dressed for school, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Are you okay, Mom? He asked, his face serious beyond his 8 years. I sat up and patted the edge of the bed. He came over and sat beside me, his small, warm hand finding mine. I'm okay, sweetie. How about you? That was a pretty intense dinner last night. He considered the question carefully, in that thoughtful way he had inherited from his father. I feel bad for Jessica and Brett, he said finally. They don't know what's coming. His empathy, especially after how they had treated him, filled me with pride. Change is hard, I agreed, but sometimes necessary. Are we going to help them? Tyler asked. Even though they were mean? I wrapped an arm around his shoulders. What do you think we should do? He leaned against me. I think we should help. They're still family. You're a better person than I was at your age, I told him, kissing the top of his head. Yes, we'll help if they let us. The rest of the morning passed in our usual routine, breakfast, school drop, off, and then a stop at the local coffee shop where I had taken to applying for jobs while using their free Wi-Fi. Today, however, I had an additional mission. I'd arranged to meet Lily to discuss her job offer more seriously. She was already waiting when I arrived, 2 steaming mugs on the table before her. You look better than anyone who experienced last night's dinner has a right to, she greeted me with a warm smile. I feel lighter, I admitted, sliding into the chair across from her, like setting down a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. Lily nodded understandingly. Family baggage is the heaviest kind. Speaking of family, I said, wrapping my hands around the warm mug Amanda called this morning. Lily's eyebrows shot up. That was unexpected. What did she want? To apologize, believe it or not. It was awkward and a bit defensive, but it was an actual apology. I took a sip of the perfectly prepared coffee. Lily always remembered how I liked it. She also said, Scott moved out last night. They're telling the kids today. How do you feel about that? I considered the question. Sad for the children. Relieved for Scott, honestly. And worried about Amanda. She's never had to face real consequences before. And your mother? That's the other news. She called too, right after Amanda. She asked if she could come over tonight to talk. She's never been to our apartment before, always claimed it was too far out of her way. Lily smiled knowingly. Amazing how motivating it is when the golden child falls from the pedestal. That's not fair, I said, though without heat. I think she's genuinely trying to make amends. You're more forgiving than I would be, Lily observed. But that's always been your strength." She straightened in her chair, shifting to a more businesslike posture. "Now, about that job offer." I was completely serious. She outlined her proposal, marketing director for her new restaurant Ember, which was set to open in 6 weeks. The salary was competitive, the hours flexible enough to accommodate Tyler's schedule, and it included health benefits that would begin immediately. "This isn't charity, Kat," she emphasized, sensing my hesitation. "You have exactly the skill set I need, marketing expertise combined with culinary knowledge. Plus, I trust you, which is worth more than any resume. And the freelance work for Tyler? Also legitimate. I need a distinctive look for our children's menu and social media graphics. His dragon design yesterday was better than half the professional work I've seen lately." I felt a swell of emotion, gratitude, hope, and something else I couldn't quite name. "I don't know what to say, Lily. After years of barely keeping in touch, you swooped in like some culinary guardian angel." She laughed. "Hardly an angel. Just a friend who never forgot the woman who tutored her through advanced pastry techniques when everyone else had given up on her." We spent the next hour discussing details, start date, responsibilities, ideas for the restaurant's marketing launch. By the time we finished our second cups of coffee, I had a new job and a renewed friendship. As we were gathering our things to leave, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Scott's number. "Mind if I take this?" I asked Lily. "Go ahead. I'll wait." I stepped outside the coffee shop for privacy. "Hello? Katrina, it's Scott. I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all. Is everything okay?" He sighed heavily. "As okay as can be expected. We told the kids this morning about the separation. It was difficult." "I'm sure it was," I said sympathetically. "How are they doing?" "Processing. Brett's angry. Jessica's withdrawn. I was actually calling because they asked about Tyler." "Tyler?" "Yes. They wanted to know if they could see him. I think last night made quite an impression, seeing their cousin handle adversity with such grace. I was touched and surprised. Of course they can see him. He was just saying this morning that he was worried about them." That's good to hear." Scott's voice caught slightly. "There's something else, Katrina. I've been in touch with the family attorney this morning about your inheritance." My heart sank. "Scott, if the money's gone, it's gone. I don't want to add legal battles to everything else." "The money your mother diverted is likely unrecoverable," he confirmed. "But there was a second trust, a smaller one that your grandmother set up directly. Your mother didn't have access to it, but as the family financial manager, I did." I gripped the phone tighter. "What are you saying?" "I protected it," he said simply. "When I realized what Amanda and your mother were doing with the main inheritance, I made sure this second trust remained untouched. It's not a fortune, about $50,000, but it's legally yours, and I've instructed the attorney to transfer control directly to you." I leaned against the coffee shop wall, stunned. "Scott, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll use it to give Tyler the opportunities he deserves," Scott replied. "And maybe help my kids understand there's a different way to live than what they've been taught." "Of course," I promised, blinking back tears. "I should go. The attorney will contact you this week." After we hung up, I stood there for a moment, absorbing what had just happened. $50,000 wouldn't solve all our problems, but it would provide security while I started the new job, maybe even a down payment on a small house eventually. Lily came outside, concern on her face. "Everything okay?" I nodded, unable to speak at first. When I finally found my voice, I told her about Scott's call and the protected trust. "See?" Lily said, squeezing my arm. "The universe balances accounts eventually." That evening, my mother arrived at our apartment precisely at 6, as arranged. She stood awkwardly in our small living room, taking in the secondhand furniture and carefully mended curtains with new eyes. "It's cozy," she offered, which from her was practically a compliment. Tyler emerged from his room, regarding his grandmother with cautious curiosity. She hadn't visited once since the divorce. "Hello, Tyler," she said, her usual crisp tone softened. "I brought you something." She held out a wrapped package. Tyler looked to me for permission before accepting it. Inside was a professional artist's sketchbook and a set of high-quality drawing pencils. "Your dragon drawing was very impressive," my mother said. "You have real talent." Tyler's face lit up. "Thanks, Grandma. Do you want to see my other drawings?" "I'd like that very much," she replied, and I detected genuine interest rather than polite obligation. While Tyler showed her his artwork, I prepared tea in our tiny kitchen. When I returned, I found my mother sitting on the floor with Tyler, her usual rigid posture relaxed as she examined his sketches. "He has a remarkable eye for detail," she commented as I set down the tea tray. "Jack was artistic too, wasn't he?" "Yes," I confirmed, surprised she remembered that detail about my ex-husband. Tyler inherited his technical skill, but has his own unique style. My mother nodded thoughtfully. After Tyler returned to his room to work on a new drawing with his gift, she turned to me with uncharacteristic hesitation. "Katrina, I owe you an apology. Many apologies, actually." "Mom, you don't have to." She held up a hand. "Please, let me say this. I've had a lot of time to reflect since last night. Seeing that old photo album, reading your grandmother's note. It forced me to remember things I've spent decades trying to forget." She told me the full story then, how she'd grown up poor, how meeting my father had catapulted her into a world of wealth and privilege where she was constantly reminded of her inadequacy, how after years of humiliation she had finally been accepted, but at the cost of becoming exactly like those who had once looked down on her. "I thought I was protecting Amanda, and you, by teaching you how to succeed in that world," she explained. "But I ended up perpetuating the very cycle that damaged me." "You could have just taught us to be kind," I said softly. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, that would have been wiser." She took a deep breath. "I spoke with Scott this morning. He told me about the protected trust. I want you to know I'm selling my condo. It's too big for one person anyway. Half the proceeds will go to you. It won't fully replace what you lost, but it's a start." "Mom, you don't have to do that." "Yes, I do," she insisted. "Not just for financial restitution, but for my own healing. I can't move forward carrying this guilt." She told me she'd also contacted Amanda and offered to help her through the bankruptcy and divorce, not with money, but with emotional support and practical assistance. "She's angry right now," my mother admitted, "at everyone, but mostly at herself. She needs time. And professional help," I added. "We all probably do." My mother smiled ruefully. Therapy wasn't considered acceptable in my generation, but yes, you're right. She hesitated, then asked, "Do you think, could we start over? Not just pretend the past didn't happen, but build something new, something better?" I thought about Tyler's wisdom that morning, about helping family even when they've hurt you. "I'd like to try," I said honestly. After my mother left, I called Amanda. I expected voicemail but was surprised when she answered. "What do you want, Katrina?" Her voice was tired rather than hostile. "To check on my sister," I replied simply. "And to tell you something someone wise once told me when my life was falling apart." "What's that?" she asked after a pause. "That rock bottom becomes a solid foundation on which to rebuild." There was a long silence, then a sound I hadn't heard in years. Amanda's genuine laugh, not the polished society version, but the real one from our childhood. "Is that what we're doing? Rebuilding?" "I hope so," I said. "Tyler would like to see his cousins this weekend, if that's okay. Maybe at the park? Low pressure, no fancy outfits required." "They'd like that," Amanda admitted. They haven't stopped talking about his drawings. When we hung up, I felt a profound sense of change. Not the neat, tidy resolution of a fairy tale, but the messy, complicated beginning of authentic healing. That night, as I tucked Tyler into bed, he asked, "Are we going to be okay, Mom?" I brushed the hair from his forehead, thinking of my new job, the recovered trust, and the fragile new connections with my family. "Yes, sweetie," I said with conviction. "We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be real." 1 month later, I stood in the bustling kitchen of Ember, Lily's new restaurant, watching the controlled chaos of opening night preparations. My marketing campaign had created significant buzz around the launch, with local food bloggers and critics scheduled to attend the invitation-only event. "How's my marketing genius doing?" Lily asked, appearing beside me in her crisp chef's whites, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Nervous," I admitted, "but excited. The reservation list is completely full, and we've got a waiting list 30 names long. And it's all because of your targeted campaign," she said, bumping my shoulder with hers. "The social media teasers, the mysterious ember boxes you sent to influencers, the progressive reveal of menu items, pure brilliance." I felt a blush of pride. As assistant marketing director for Ember, I'd been able to combine my marketing expertise with my long dormant passion for culinary arts. The past month had been exhausting but exhilarating, developing the restaurant's brand identity, creating marketing materials, and coordinating with local media. "Have you seen the children's menus?" I asked. "They just arrived from the printer." Lily's eyes lit up. "Show me." I led her to my small office off the main kitchen and presented the freshly printed menus. The cover featured Tyler's dragon design, professionally refined but maintaining the original essence of his artwork. Inside, each dish was accompanied by whimsical illustrations that he had created specifically for the project. "These are perfect," Lily declared. "Every bit as good as if we'd hired an established illustrator. Better, actually, because they have heart." "Tyler's over the moon about seeing his work in print," I told her. "He's been practicing his autograph for tonight." Lily laughed. A child after my own heart, already preparing for fame. We were interrupted by one of the sous chefs calling for Lily's attention. As she hurried off to address a crisis with the seafood delivery, I returned to my preparations for the evening. The past month had brought changes I couldn't have imagined that fateful night at Amanda's dinner table. Beyond the new job, which had given me financial stability and creative fulfillment, there had been shifts in my family dynamic that still seemed surreal at times. My mother had indeed sold her condo and downsized to a smaller apartment closer to us. True to her word, she had split the proceeds, providing me with enough to pay off my remaining debts and put a down payment on a modest 3-bedroom house in a good school district. More significantly, she had become a regular presence in Tyler's life, attending his school art show and even volunteering to chaperone an upcoming field trip. Amanda's situation had been more complicated. The bankruptcy proceedings had begun, and she and Scott were moving forward with their divorce. They had been forced to sell their mansion, with Amanda and the children moving to a 3-bedroom apartment that she described in our weekly phone calls as practically uninhabitable, despite it being larger than my new house. Yet within these difficulties, I had seen glimpses of a sister I barely recognized, one who was slowly, painfully learning humility and resilience. Jessica and Brett had started at the local public school, where, after some initial adjustment struggles, they were beginning to form authentic friendships rather than strategic social alliances. Most surprising was the relationship developing between the cousins. What had started as an awkward play date at the park had evolved into regular weekend gatherings. Tyler was teaching Jessica and Brett to draw, while they were including him in their video game sessions and sports activities. My phone vibrated with a text from Scott. "We're here. Where should we go?" I smiled and texted back directions to the private dining room where my family would be seated for the opening. Scott had been instrumental in helping me navigate the legal aspects of my recovered inheritance and had become an unexpected friend and ally. As I finished the final touches on the welcome packages for our VIP guests, there was a knock at my office door. I looked up to see Amanda standing there, looking both out of place and strangely vulnerable. "Your hostess said I could come back," she explained. "Hope that's okay." "Of course," I said, surprised but pleased. "Everyone else is in the private dining room." Amanda didn't move toward the door, instead fidgeting with the strap of her purse, a simple leather bag that had replaced her collection of designer accessories. "I wanted to talk to you alone first," she said. "To give you something." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, placing it on my desk. "It's not much, just $2,000. The first installment." I stared at the envelope, confused. "First installment of what?" "Repayment," she said, her voice uncharacteristically humble. "For the inheritance. I can't return it all at once, but I've taken a job as an administrative assistant at a real estate office. It doesn't pay much, but I'm putting aside 20% of every paycheck." I was speechless. In our recent interactions, we had carefully avoided discussing the money, focusing instead on rebuilding our relationship. Amanda, you don't have to. Yes, I do, she interrupted firmly. Maybe not legally, since Mom made the transfer, but morally. She met my eyes directly. I'm trying to teach Brett and Jessica about accountability. How can I do that if I'm not accountable myself? I rose from my desk and did something that would have been unthinkable 2 months ago. I hugged my sister. After a moment of stiffness, she hugged me back. I'm proud of you, I said softly. Taking that job couldn't have been easy. She gave a small laugh as we separated. The first day I had to make coffee for everyone, I nearly quit. Me, making coffee for people I would have considered beneath me before. She shook her head ruefully. But you know what? It was oddly liberating. For the first time, I'm being valued for what I actually do, not for who I pretend to be. A timer on my phone chimed, reminding me that the doors would open to guests in 30 minutes. We should join the others, I said, gathering my materials. Tyler's been waiting to show you and the kids his menus. Amanda nodded, then hesitated. Katrina, do you think I could ever have what you have? Not the material things, but the authenticity, the real connections. You already do, I told her truthfully. Every time you choose honesty over appearance, every time you admit vulnerability, you're building something real. She considered this, then smiled, a genuine smile that reminded me of the sister I had known before status and competition had come between us. Let's go see Tyler's dragon menus then. Jessica hasn't stopped talking about them. The private dining room was filled with my newfound extended family, my mother chatting animatedly with Scott about Tyler's school options, Brett and Jessica showing Tyler something on a tablet, Lily's parents who had flown in for the opening and had immediately adopted all of us into their warm circle. "And Amanda!" Tyler called out when he saw us, running over with a menu clutched in his hand. "Look! They used my drawings, just like I designed them." Amanda knelt to examine the menu, giving it the serious attention it deserved. "This is extraordinary, Tyler. You're a published artist now." Tyler beamed at her praise. Jessica helped with the color schemes, he added generously, and Brett came up with the name for the kids' Dragon Burger. I watched as Amanda joined the children, sitting between them as they excitedly showed her their contributions. My mother caught my eye across the room and mouthed thank you for what, I wasn't entirely sure. For forgiveness, perhaps. For the chance to rewrite our family story. The restaurant opening was a tremendous success. Food critics praised the innovative menu, the atmosphere, and particularly the unique children's offerings. Local media covered the event enthusiastically, with several publications highlighting the story behind the children's menu, a collaborative project between young cousins that symbolized Ember's commitment to family and community. But the true triumph of the evening for me came much later, after the critics had gone and only family remained. We gathered around a large table in the now quiet restaurant, sharing desserts and stories as if the years of tension and resentment had never existed. "A toast," Scott proposed, raising his glass. "To Katrina and Tyler, whose courage and creativity have inspired all of us. To second chances," my mother added, her eyes misty. "To real family," Amanda said, her arm around Jessica, who was falling asleep against her shoulder. "To dragons," Tyler contributed with a grin, raising his sparkling cider. "To all of it," I concluded, looking around at these people who had hurt me, whom I had hurt, and with whom I was now building something authentic and enduring. As we finished our desserts and prepared to leave, Tyler tugged at my sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, "remember when Aunt Amanda said, 'We don't feed extras'?" I tensed slightly, worried that the painful memory still bothered him. "Yes, sweetie, I remember." He smiled, his eyes wise beyond his years. "We're not extras anymore, are we? We're all main characters now." Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. Later that night, as I tucked Tyler into bed in our new home, modest but ours, filled with light and possibility, he asked sleepily, "Do you think Grandma and Aunt Amanda are going to be okay?" I smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "I think we're all going to be okay. Different than before, but maybe better." "Better because it's real?" he suggested, echoing our conversations over the past month. "Exactly," I confirmed. Better because it's real. As I turned out his light and headed to my own room, I reflected on the journey that had begun with a glass of water and a cutting remark. The pain of that moment had been real, but it had cracked open a facade that needed to fall. We don't feed extras. Those words had wounded me deeply at the time. But they had also forced a confrontation that ultimately freed all of us from the roles we had been trapped in: golden child, scapegoat, enabler, victim. My new life wasn't perfect. There were still financial challenges, co-parenting complications with Jack, and the ongoing work of rebuilding trust with Amanda and my mother. But it was authentic, and that made all the difference. I thought of my grandmother's note: kindness costs nothing but means everything. In choosing kindness over revenge, truth over pretense, I had gained far more than I had lost. As I drifted off to sleep, I realized that the most valuable inheritance my grandmother had left wasn't money but wisdom, the understanding that true wealth lies not in what we possess or how others perceive us, but in the courage to live authentically, even when that path leads through pain. Sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do when handed a glass of water instead of a feast is simply to smile and say, "Noted," and then go on to create a banquet of our own making, with enough to share with everyone, extras and all. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone's cruelty unexpectedly led to positive change in your life? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share to help others find encouragement in their own journeys. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes our greatest strength is revealed in our most vulnerable moments.